Welcome to Champagne Sunday. I'm Lauren.
Hey, I'm Bonnie.
I'm Beth.
And we're going to talk about life
After divorce.
And living
The best life.
and the life you love.
Yes, living the life you love on that other side.
I had been working on things for a while after dealing with several instances that compromised my marriage, and I was trying to decide whether I wanted to work through it or not. Like, I had been grappling with that for a while, like working through it / do I even want to be working through it?
And what do you mean by a while? Like, how long had you
3 years since the last time that I felt like it might be over. And there was counseling involved. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I bought a dog. I feel like I bought a dog to save the marriage. I feel like, in that time we renewed our vows. Like, there were lots of, in retrospect, what I feel like, and this may seem differently to other parties involved, but it felt like Band-Aids because I didn't know what else to do to make it better. And just wasn't better. And there were two very specific moments that stick out to me when I was like getting ready to, or when I wasn't sure if it was going to work out. One is someone had to quarantine upstairs for a week, and I realized it was the most peaceful week I had in, I couldn't tell you how long. And then after that realization, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave still, but I knew that maybe I needed to have a separation. And then as the months progressed and I was dealing with that, and I did ask for a separation that didn't manifest, that didn't happen. But there was one morning that someone clapped in my face to wake me up. And that was it. That was just the final straw. Like, that was it. And that really has been it since that moment. So
Yeah, I've always heard you just know.
Yeah.
Yeah, while you're going through it, people will say, you just know. You just know.
My dad, I would call my dad, and I had to have somebody to make me feel like I wasn't going crazy. Like, I had to check out things to make sure, did I hear that right? Was that really said to me? That's kind of thing. Well, and I would call my dad, and he would say, Beth, when you've had enough, you will have had enough. I cannot tell you when it's going to be. You will just know it's enough.
And I will say, sometimes you think it's not that bad. You think, oh, this could be so much worse. And then you articulate it to a friend
and you see their reaction.
Or your parent, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Right, because you become so used to it. And you talk yourself into everything is okay, I'm going to make everything okay, it's going to be right because this is the person I chose.
Yeah.
Yes. But you just know when you know.
Yeah. I remember having that sort of surreal out-of-body experience when that moment happened for me. And mine's different in that he was an alcoholic. And it was buying alcohol. It was a date on a purchase of alcohol that I just found stashed in the garage. And I truly was like, oh, there it is. There's the straw. This is what has going to put me over the edge. I've been wondering all this time what it was going to be, and this is it. It truly was just sort of they're right. You just know. Mm-hmm. I know. In this moment.
So was it a moment then for each of us, like an identifying moment that was it?
Mine was actually in therapy. I think it was the 5th or 6th therapist that we were seeing. And we had driven separate cars, and we were sitting in these chairs, these wingback chairs side by side, but you couldn't see the person. And then the therapist was sitting in front of us. And we had gone in. This was about 2 months in. And at the first meeting, we sat and he said, this is how it's going to go. You're going to take turns. And you let the person speak the whole time, and then the next person will respond. So we had been doing that for a month, maybe 2 months. And at the very beginning, he had said, you're going to give this 3 months. Nobody's going to do anything rash. we're just going to see how 3 months. At the end of 3 months, then we'll weigh and see where we are. And I had sat down. It was my turn to go first. I was a little nervous. I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to say something. And my ex jumped up out of his chair and said, I spent $7,000. And was like, what? We had an agreement if we spent a certain amount of money. We told each other before. So, it kept the bank balanced. Anyway, when he jumped up and did that, I didn't know how to react, and I thought, and the therapist said, what the? We had an agreement. I thought, it was like a lightning bolt came down, and I was thinking, what the? We had an agreement. Why am I doing this? Why am I on the fifth or sixth therapist? It is. It's like a really bad movie where the shaft of light comes down the heavens part, and you just think, ta-da!
I see it.
And I thought that's exactly how I felt by that time, I guess that had been going on almost 10 years. Mm. And I thought,
10?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
10 years. And I kept trying to work on it. I kept trying to keep it together. But it's like in that moment when he said that, and when the therapist, they don't usually say anything. And when he validated exactly how I felt, and then I just had this moment, it was like time slowed down, and I was thinking, what the? We had an agreement. And then I was thinking, and I'm the only one that kept it. Why am I doing this? It's just like hit me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, that's it. That's it.
Mine was about 10 years. I worked on trying to make it work for about 10 years.
In retrospect, my making it work started in 2015, so that would have been like 7 years.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was no going back. I didn't even want to pay for that therapy session. I was like, this is it. I'm done.
Well, and it's like at that point, all of the fear that I had, the fear of being alone, the fear of having to budget, having to make all of this money on my own because, I worked, but I'm an educator, so it's not like I have a ton of money. All of those fears that I had in that moment didn't matter. It was like, I'll face whatever it is I need to face because the peace, it's got to be better than this. Mm-hmm. I have felt so betrayed.
Well, by that time, it was very chaotic in my house. Mm-hmm. Because it was the thing we didn't really want to talk about, and I never tried to have a fight in front of my kids or have angry words, so there was a thread of tension in my house all the time. And like people picked it up on me that I didn't realize. I used to go to a massage therapist, and she was really my therapist too. And she looked at me one day, I can remember she was kneading my shoulders, and she said, you never even relax enough to get a massage. I'm going to hand you this book, and I'm not judging anything, but I think you have a lot of tension at home. And the name of the book was Walking on Eggshells.
Oh yeah, there were eggshells in my house.
Oh my word, everybody knows this about me, and I thought I was,
Yeah, when you
I thought I was getting an Emmy for
everybody's retreating to corners.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize you don't even have a family that's together because no one wants to be in this, to be in the eggshell room.
I recognize in retrospect that I created, I'm an artist and a theater person, and that involves me being at rehearsal a lot. But I recognize that I did as much theater as I could to not be at home because it was making me miserable.
Oh, I got a whole degree.
And then another one. I didn't know.
I opened a needlepoint shop, and it was my happy place. I literally would open the door, exhale. Everything was right with the world. It was beautiful. I had friends that just wanted to come and create, and it was
I started writing 2 novels. Yeah. I mean, whatever it was I could do to keep myself from having to engage in the eggshell environment that had been created. Mm-hmm. I mean, still protect my kids as much as I could, but I didn't want to have to face that emotional chaos that was just sort of like hanging in the middle of the eye of the storm. pretending like it's not there.
I think it just got to a point for me that I didn't want to have to engage because it was either going to be not what I wanted, like not fulfilling, or very bad. So
not productive.
Yeah,
not productive at all. I think you get to a point that no matter what you say, it's falling on deaf ears. Well, at least in my experience, he completely disconnected from having a family and having a wife. And so I basically was the maid, and I cooked and did his laundry and was the place where he came to sleep. Yeah. There was no other engagement.
Well, I feel like I was just roommates for a very long time. That's what the situation was, and it got to a point that it was roommates and not even friends. I
feel like I was watching someone kill himself. So in fact, that was what I basically said to him on that day was, I really don't want to watch you live out leaving Las Vegas. I'm not going to watch you kill yourself. You're not going to do this.
Not in front of the kids.
Not in front of me and not in front of the kids. Yeah. I have fought to keep you alive. I have fought to get you to stop drinking. I have tried to make this home pleasant. Yeah, protect your reputation. I have protected the kids from knowing how bad this alcoholism is with you. I have done all of these things to try and make. I was a good wife. I was a good wife. I did everything I could to anticipate his needs, to keep the stress out of the house so he didn't feel like he had to drink. All of these things to I lost my complete identity trying to get him to be well. And he didn't even recognize that he had a problem.
Yeah.
And it just, so for me, it was just, it was hard. It was just truly, it was watching someone I cared about, he turned into someone I didn't know.
That's how I feel about mine. Also he had addictive personality disorder. So most men just have an affair or drink or do other things, and mine did everything. So I do share in that. I think I spent so many years, like my kids had quiet time at night because of his work. He was up early in the morning, so he went to bed by 8. So at 8 o'clock, my house shut down. Nobody made a noise. Everybody was quiet. I tailored our whole existence around being nurturing and supportive so that he could advance his career. And, people did not know how bad it was at my house. People did not, and that was by design. I put on a happy face and, tried to make things look great for my children. And
okay, well, let's talk about something on the other side of that. How did it feel? And Lauren, you are just now experiencing this. How did it feel to finally have no eggshells in your home? What was because my fear was big. It was being alone. I really feared having to live on my own. And that first bit of just me and the kids, it was like, was it in Roger Rabbit where the sun comes out and the rainbow is all happy
when he goes to Toonland
everybody's engaged and happy and singing. The kids came out of their rooms. We all spent time. We had dinner together. We spent time upstairs in the same room. Nobody retreated back to their corners anymore. It was a peace I had not felt since we were probably early married. Since I had little bitty kids, I had not felt peace that way.
So I have 2 more weeks before I'm eggshell free at this point, completely eggshell free. But the moments that I get to be with just me or with just my child are incredible. Like I don't think I realized the amount of anxiety that I was experiencing as a result of those negative interactions or the non-interactions.
Right. Just, yeah.
Well, it takes a lot of energy to have a non-interaction.
Yeah. And I'm like...
It's living on the defensive. Living on the defensive takes a lot of energy.
And I'm a very social person, and I need very little alone time to recoup. And that was my biggest fear about all of this, like making this decision, is there will be moments when and I have a lot of friends. It's not like I don't have something to do every day. I have something to do every day. But I was really nervous about what it was going to feel like to just be by myself in my house. And it has been very therapeutic so far. Now, I know that I'm on the very beginning of this, but I guess I didn't know, like, maybe I need a little bit more me time than I thought I did, you know?
Well, you've been running away from me time because the only me time you could get was in a house with eggshells.
And my home has not been a peace place. I have found happiness and peace in other spaces for the last...
In other spaces with people in them.
Yeah, other spaces with people, because I'm an extrovert.
Well, so, you're in the theater.
Yeah, I'm in the theater. But,
I'll be interested to see how your child feels when he comes back into the space, because you realize how you feel, but sometimes you don't know. I had one at college and I had one at home with me. And I made a conscious effort to actually change my surroundings in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
I painted everything. I rearranged furniture. I took all the pictures off the wall and everything and redid my house. And it's kind of funny because a couple months in, not very far, maybe 2 months in, my younger child came to me and said, "Mom, our house feels different. Like the air in our house is different." I thought, yeah, it is, baby girl. It's a lot different. I mean, she actually felt it,
mm-hmm.
which made me feel like, okay, that was the moment that I knew that this was the right decision.
Yeah.
Like in concrete, this was the right decision. I had waited 10 years. My fear was not so much being alone. My fear was more that I didn't want my children to come from a quote-unquote broken home. But then, as I sort of leaned into it, I realized living with all that palpable negative energy in a house is a lot more destructive to a child than just being from a divorced situation. Yeah. So, but when we got divorced, my youngest was in a very small Christian school, and there was only one other child from a divorced family, and I did not realize it then, but she was acutely aware of it, and it caused some anxiety on her part, but I think she's worked through that now. But I just, because we're in a different place, but even now, moving and having my own home, this house has a different energy to it too. That's happy and it's very peaceful.
I mean, just in the last week, I've rearranged furniture and like put things where they go. Today, I bought new trash cans because I knew I needed them, and I knew that I needed to do it and that I could, and so I did.
And you got to pick, and nobody's going to judge your
and nobody's gonna just like let it be like that, like let it go unattended or like that. That's huge. I had a party the other night because, again, I'm very social and I like doing that. But I had a party, and I live in a house that was built in 1907. We all live in very old houses. But the porch broke. One of the edges of my porch, one of the railings broke. And I was out there today, and I was like, yeah, it broke. And then I thought, the only person I have to rely on to fix that's me. I get to call. And I get to decide when we fix that. Like, I don't have to wait on anyone else's decision or anyone else's finances. Like, and I know what my budget is and the exact expenses I have. And that's so, I don't know. I haven't known that in 10 years, 11 years.
And as scary and terrifying as it can be to be in charge of my own budget, it is also one of the most freeing things.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. I don't have any guilt over getting my hair colored or my fingernails done or any of that I used to feel all this terrible guilt over.
But also, no one can hide anything from you in that regard. Like, it's your budget. Like, And you, like, I was at my friend's porch last night, and I was looking across the street, and I was like, I own that house. That's my house.
It's a great feeling.
It is.
It is.
You bought your house too.
I did.
And
Well,
I bought mine.
my biggest dream growing up is I wanted an old house. I've always wanted an old house. And my ex would never have an old house. He was in the lumber business and said, I will never ever live in an old house because nothing is ever square, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we divorced, I was like, oh, I can get an old house. Oh my gosh, I can actually do it. And so I found this house, and I actually live next door to Lauren, my 1909 house next to your 1907. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is my house. I feel like it was built in 1909 for me. It is just perfect for every kid has a room. I had this huge need because I knew their dad was not necessarily going to be stable because of his addiction, to have every kid have a space so they felt they had a home to come home to, even though two of them were grown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And college age. I felt like I needed to have a home base for them. Mm-hmm. You know, even if I don't stay here, I'll keep the house. I want them to have a place that they know is home and come back to. So
I think that's important too, that they know that they're always welcome and it's a safe home to come to, and I hope that mine will always be peaceful and that they feel like they can come
and this
home
will always be your
room,
and this will always be your space to keep some of your things. And
I have a very significant home base feeling too. Like when I made the decision to buy my house, I was very cognizant of the fact that like I was not just buying my house, I was buying the neighborhood. I was buying my neighbors.
Why, thank you.
But this is a good neighborhood.
But that was a really big deal. And my mom, Bonnie, lives on one side of me. My friend lives on one side of me.
Each other's names.
And my mom lives on the other side. And the fact that like my kid one day he took a walk in the neighborhood on his own, and I didn't know what was happening, and neither did his father. And our neighbors found him. And they knew who he was because he was instantly identifiable everybody just knows him. So the fact that like that's the neighborhood, it meant everything to me. So it was worth it to do that. But I think like that home base mentality, it is something that I didn't start to really think about until I was going to be single,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, did you? When you were married, think about home base mentality? Like
because I thought that wherever we moved into a home that was a house that his parents had built, and they had passed away, but we completely gutted it, redid it for our home, and it was going to be the legacy for the kids. It was going to be the home base that had been my ex-husband's home base. Really, it was going to be our home base, and so it wasn't like we felt like. We didn't set out to have this place where the kids would come back and all that. It just kind of like just was known that we'd do it. It just sort of, he was from Decatur, from this town. He grew up here. His brother was here. It was just, we would just live here, and that was a part of it. So for me to decide that I wanted a home base, but I knew I wanted to stay here because my daughter was still in high school. I knew I wanted to be here. So I knew I had to have a home base in the city where my kids had grown up. Because that was important too. I couldn't just move several cities away and create a home base because they're people in the places they'd already known. I was already moving them we'd moved out of this would be a second house moving my daughter out of, it just, I didn't necessarily want to have that much rock and change their world. Everything was already changing. And I know that they were older. My middle was his senior year in high school. Was when we divorced or we moved and all. So, I mean, I just didn't want that much change. So I didn't really have a home-based mentality. Or I guess I did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it was my responsibility.
I did.
How about that? Until we divorced. And then I really did.
I did. We built the house in Columbia when my son was 3. So basically that's all he remembered, and then my daughter was born in that house, and so after the divorce I was cognizant that is the only house that they had really remembered. And I stayed there until my youngest was in 6th grade. In 5th grade, I knew I wanted to move. The divorce wasn't final. I didn't have permission to move her across state lines. It was just it would have been a lot more hoops to jump through. So I wanted to move before she was in high school, so we moved when she was in middle school. And the reason I came back is this is my hometown. My house is a mile from my dad, a mile from my brother and his wife and family, and I had a support system, and I thought it was important for really both my children, but especially my youngest, to have a male and two strong male examples, mentors that she knew and loved, and that loved her. So I did the cliche thing and moved back home. But it has been a great decision.
And a podcast for another day is that I am now about to be empty nest, and I don't have to stay here anymore. And that's a whole different sort of weird freedom that gives me a lot of anxiety I didn't necessarily expect. But that's a talk for another time. Thank y'all for joining us for Champagne Sunday.
See you next week.
Yeah, cheers.
Have a good week.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.